This is the lesson for Chapter 5, Section 6, called Transformations. And a transformation is when an object changes location. Now notice that the sizes and the shape is not going to change, but the location is. And so there's three ways to transform an object without changing its shape, which is called rigid motion. Rigid motion is when we keep the item rigid. We just do not change the shape or the size. And so there's three ways to do that, and that's either to translate, rotate, or reflect. And so we're going to look at all the different types of transformations here. And so we'll start with the first one, which is a translation. And a translation is a slide, and it slides along a straight line. And so what we're going to end up doing is using the rule that they give us. And so here's the original image here, or the pre-image we'll call it. And what the rule is this. We're going to take the x and the y value, and we're going to take the x value and add 5 to it, take the y value, subtract 6. So the first thing to do is to write down what our ordered pairs are of our original image here. And so A is going to end up being 5 spaces to the left and 3 spaces up. So negative 5, comma 3. So negative 5, comma 3 is what A is. And then B, if I look at that one, that is 1 space to the left, and it is 1 space up. And then letter C is 5 spaces to the left and 1 space up. And so what we're going to end up doing is following this rule. So for A prime, we're going to end up having to add 5 to negative 5. And so that's where I'm getting 0 from. So all I did is just went negative 5 plus 5. And so I'm just taking the x value, putting it in there, and doing the operation it tells me to. Same thing here. For y, I have 3, and if I take 6 away, which is what the rule says right up here, then I end up at negative 3. So that's all I'm doing, is just using that rule. So let's go a little faster here with this. We've got b, we've got negative 1, we've got to add 5 to that, and so that's where I'm getting positive 4. And then I take 6 away from 1, and that's where I'm getting negative 5. So again, I'm just using the rule that's stated up at the top. C prime is going to be negative 5 plus 5 gives me 0 again, and 1 in for the y right here, minus 6 gives me negative 5. So now I've got those points, I can go ahead and plot them. And so over 0, and then down 3 spaces, puts me right there, and that is A prime. And then over 4 spaces, there's 2, 4, and then down 5 spaces, puts me right there. I'll call that B prime. And then over 0 and then down 5 puts me right there, and we'll call that C prime. Once I've got those points, you can just connect them with lines, and we've got our image. Now notice that it slides along a straight line. So the straight line could be like from this point here, C, sliding all the way down to C prime. And so that's how it's sliding right along that. So if I draw that in there, you'll see a little bit better here. And so it's sliding right along that line, and then it ends up right there. But the item remains rigid. That means it doesn't change its shape, doesn't change its size. Let's take a look at the next one. And here we've got a new rule. So this time we're taking 6 away from x, adding 7 to y. So the first step is to always write down what our ordered pairs are. So if I look at A from the pre-image, it's 2, negative 2. B is 4, negative 2. C is 4, comma 5, or negative 5. And D is 2, comma negative 5. So I'm going to write the image now by following what the rule says. So the rule says to subtract 6 from x. So I'm doing 2 minus 6. And that's where I'm getting negative 4 from. So negative 4, and then I have to do negative 2 plus 7, and that's what it says here. For the y value goes in place of y, add 7, that's where I'm getting positive 5 from. So that's where that equals 5. And so I do that with each of them. So B prime, I'm going to subtract 6 from 4, makes negative 2, and then 7 plus negative 2 makes a positive 5. And then for C prime, take 6 from 4 makes negative 2, and then negative 5 plus 7 gives me positive 2. D prime, I've got 2 minus 6 makes negative 4. Negative 5 plus 7 gives me positive 2. So once I've got my points, I'm just going to plot those. on the coordinate plane. So I'm going over 4 spaces to the left this time and up 5 spaces. Puts me right there, and then I can just label that A prime. And then 2 spaces to the left, up 5, puts me right there, that's B prime. And then 2 spaces to the left and up 2 spaces, puts me right there, and that is C prime. And then 2 spaces to the left, and actually that was D prime there. So let's fix that. And then 2 spaces to the left and up 2 puts me right there, and that's C prime. So once I connect those points with lines, I've got my figure. So again, the figure doesn't change in size, just the location. So that is one form of transformation. It's called a translation. Let's take a look at another one. And this is called a reflection. And so a reflection is a mirror image or a flip of the item. And so there's 2 ways to reflect. We're either going to reflect in this class along the x-axis or the y-axis. Let's try both. So the first step is to write down our ordered pairs. And so for our pre-image, we have A at -4, -1. B is going to end up being -2, -4. And then we have C, and C is at -4, -4. And so when we flip something or reflect it, we're going to look across this x-axis. So imagine this being a mirror, and the further you are away from the mirror, the further the object appears from the mirror. And so the closer you are, the closer you are. So what we're going to end up doing is counting the spaces from this line of reflection to the point that we have. So A is just 1 space from the x-axis, so that's where it's going to be. On the other side, just 1 space from that. C is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces down, so that means we're going to go 4 spaces up. And put a dot right there and call that C prime. B is, looks like the same number of spaces from the x-axis, so we'll just put it right there in line with it, and we'll call that B prime, and that would be our shape. And so what we're going to end up doing is writing down what the ordered pairs are for this, and it's A prime, and A prime is going to be 4 spaces to the right, or to the left, and 1 space up, so -4, 1. B prime is 2 spaces to the left. Fix that. So B prime, 2 spaces to the left, and it is 4 spaces up. And then C prime is going to be 4 spaces to the left and 4 spaces up. So notice what changes here. Everything seemed to remain the same. See, the x values didn't change, but the y values became their opposites. So you see here it was -1, here it's +1, and that's what is reflected on the rule. And so this is our rule, and that's a way to describe it. And so notice how the original values were x and y, and it went to, that's what the arrow means, it goes to, x value stayed the same, the y value became its opposite. So we're going to see that same sort of concept, but it'll be a little bit different for when it is reflected across the y-axis. So let's start with our points. A is -3, 3. B is -2, 1. C is -6, 1. These are the points just from what I had over here. Now, A prime, we're reflecting about the y-axis this time, so it's going to be going this way. It's going to be going horizontal. So B is 2 spaces to the y-axis, so 2 spaces over on the other side, and that would give me B prime. C is 6 spaces from the y-axis, so I'll go 6 spaces that way. And A is, we have it, looks like 3 spaces over from the y-axis as well. So A prime is 3 spaces over to the right, and we have 3 spaces up, and so it's going to be a +3, +3 in this case. And then I have, look at B prime, and B prime is 2 spaces to the right and 1 space up. And then I have C prime, and that is 6 spaces to the right and 1 space up. And so I'm comparing them to the values that I had originally, and the y values did not change, but the x values this time changed. And notice they changed their opposite. And that's what the rule is as well. So notice how, again, the y value stayed the same, but the x value here changed to its opposite when I'm reflecting across the y-axis. When I'm reflecting across the x-axis, notice that it did the opposite. It changed the y value, but not the x. And so that is what we end up seeing. So let's take a look at the last type of transformation, and that is a rotation. And so the first thing I'm going to end up doing is let's go ahead and plot or write down what our pre-images are. And so A is 2, 4, and B is 6, 2. And then we have C, and C is at 1, 2. And so when I rotate, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to try to rotate this counterclockwise 90 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate it. Now when I do that, I actually turn the paper, and I'm rotating it counterclockwise, it says. So counterclockwise 90 degrees, and I'm going to do that with this. And notice what happens. So this was the image down here. Let me go ahead and bring it back up. So this is my new image here, and so I'm going to go ahead and cut that real quick so I can put it onto my screen that I have over here. And I'll go ahead and move that down here. And the reason why I did this for you is so that you can see where the values are. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this my Y value, and this is going to be my X. So this helps me see where things are. See, this is what the image should end up looking like. And this gives me an idea. Once you rotate it, now you can read off your values. So Y, or the C value, C prime, is going to end up being 2 spaces to the left and 1 space up. A prime is going to end up being, we've got 4 spaces to the left and 2 spaces up. And B prime, which is the high point there, is 2 spaces to the left, 6 spaces up. And so that gives me an idea about what I have. And then I can go ahead and plot that. So rotating it and then writing down the images helps you figure out what the image will end up looking like. And then from there, or at least gives you the idea about where the points should end up being. And from there, you can go ahead and plot those values. And so I'll just do that real quick right here. And that will be my rotation. So that is a rotation going counterclockwise. Let's take a look at one that goes a different direction. So this one, it says, needs to be rotated 180 degrees. And so I'm going to start going back to my original. So let's go back to my original here. And so now we're back to the original one, and this is the image that I want to do right here. And so I'm going to rotate this, and this time I'm rotating it 180 degrees. So let's take a look at what it looks like, and here it is. So let me go ahead and cut that real quick. Snip this and put it onto my drawing. And this is what my new image is going to end up looking like. So let's see where we're at. And so again, when you do this, it helps you to just rotate your page to see where things are going to be. So it's all going to be located down in here. So my C value is going to end up being here. My B value is going to be here. And my, oops, that actually is our D value there. D right there. And then B is going to be right here. It looks like an A goes right there, just from the image that I ended up having. So that's going to be our rotation. So let's go ahead and take a look at our values there. So our original value for A was -4, 4. And our original value for B was -3, 4. And the original value for C was -2, 1. Original value for D was -5, 1. And so I've got these other points, and notice where they're at. It looks like the C value, do that one first, is 2 spaces to the right, 1 space down. D was this one right over here, and that's 5 spaces to the right, so +5, comma, and then it's just 1 space down, so -1. And then I have B. B's right here. It looks like it's 3 spaces to the right, and it looks like it's 4 spaces down. And then A prime is going to end up being 4 spaces to the right and 4 spaces down. So let's take a look at what the rules would end up being. So for this one, when it was counterclockwise, I can describe it this way. I can say XY, the original, went to an image that was, well, looks like the values swapped. So the Y value became the X value, is what it shows here. See how 4, 2, 2 were the Y values here? Now they're on the X side. So I'm going to write down Y, but they're the opposite of those, so it's -Y. And the X values remain the same, but they became the Y values. So that would be our rule. For the 180 degree rotation, our original one was xy. Let's see what it went to. Well, the x values look like they remain the same. So the x values are the same, and the y values are the same as well, but it looks like both of them changed to their opposites. See how it was -4, -3, -2, -5? Well, it became 4, 3, 2, and +5. So those became their opposites. And here it was originally 4, 4, 1, and 1. Now it's -4, -4, -1, -1. So that became its opposite as well. And so those are the different types of transformations. Good luck.